Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live videocast where we talk with people from all walks of the publishing industry. I'm Christie Stratos, author of the historical suspense series, The Dark Victoriana Collection, and I also write historical fantasy, which we'll talk about today. And my awesome co-host is Richard H. Stevens, epic fantasy author of the series Soulforge Universe, Soulforge Saga, and a lot more. Lurking for Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or simply make comments on what you hear in the show. So tonight, as you can see, we have a fantasy panel. This is so exciting. We're really dying to get into this. We have horror fantasy author A.F. Stewart, mythological fantasy author Keri Brown, urban fantasy author J.D. Estrada, and urban fantasy author Kathrin Hutson. So welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here.
Greetings.
Greetings. So we have the team here with
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I figure, just the way we do in any other, chat that we have, we could just go around and quickly talk about the fantasy in particular that we write, which some of our, audience may not be familiar with. So let's just start with you. A.F. Stewart, tell us a little bit about your fantasy writing.
Well, most of my fantasy writing is on the dark side. I've got some horror fantasy, I've got some contemporary fantasy, I've got epic fantasy, and I've got some steampunk fantasy. So I'm kind of across the board when it comes to fantasy, but it's all dark. There's definitely going to be dead bodies in my fantasy. So
I love that. So, perfect. And how about you, Keri?
Well, my world, my series kind of started off one way, started off very kind of young adult in texture. And as I wrote, I evolved as a writer. And now I also have dead bodies everywhere. So I kind of went from young adult to adult and into the darker zones in writing. And I very much love the style of like the Grimm brothers, bringing fantasy into the darkness, and having fairy tales and mythologies turn out in different ways than what we're used to. So that's kind of my niche.
So Christie, just to interrupt, Keri, did I label you wrong as calling you a mythological fantasy author? How would you label yourself?
Oh, well, I do have a lot of mythology in there, and there's so many labels that I could put on there, but someone recently pointed out to me that with all the aspects that I have in the fantasy, between the action and the mythology and the folklore, fairy tales, that the strongest thing I have in there is drama, the bonding between brothers, the family ties. So it's more of a dramatic fantasy, I guess, if that's a thing.
No, that's fine. I just don't want to mislabel you and have the viewers think that this is all you write. So no, that's great.
It's as accurate as many other labels.
Yeah. All labels encompass a lot more than they sound like. That is so true. So how about you, Kathrin?
Yes, thanks, Christie and Richard, for having me here. I started writing epic grim dark fantasy. My first duology from way back when is The Jungle Book meets Kill Bill with dragons. There's always been a lot of blood and gore and dead bodies everywhere. The darkness is where I live. Exquisite darkness is my tagline. That's what I do. And I steadily diverged from that. I will be going back to epic grim dark very soon. Pretty much everything I write is grimdark as well. And I also write dystopian sci-fi and queer fiction. So now what I'm focusing on with my fantasy, it's urban fantasy mashup, perhaps. It's a ton of action, always lots of violence. The stakes are high. And one of my favorite things always about fantasy has been the world building and an ability to create completely new, different spaces that no one else has ever seen before. With my latest urban fantasy series, Accessory to Magic, I was able to combine urban fantasy with that new exploration of other worlds and world building, which was super fun. So I am just another lover of the darkness of fantasy here, and I guess I don't stand out too much. It's great. I found my people. I love it.
The dark
This is almost
side
a
has
dark
cookies.
fantasy panel.
Yeah, this is really funny, actually. Great. How about you, JD?
Some people say that they're a jack of all trades. I am a joker of all trades. I write poetry, I write nonfiction, but when it comes to fantasy, I love urban fantasy, and I love middle grade because it's either dark and gruesome, and it's not as dark and gruesome as some of y'all. So it's just slightly dark, some dead bodies, not all the dead bodies. You guys are like, yes, we have cadavers. If there isn't a carcass in this chapter, it's incomplete. No, there can be dead bodies, but what fascinates me about writing urban fantasy is just taking stuff that I've lived and I've seen on the news and say, okay, let's drop it here and let's see where it's going to lead us, and just go on those tangents. And the fun part for me for urban fantasy is doing the research, and then when I'm kind of stuck, I have like these dumpster files that are 300 pages long of just BS and just info, and I just literally I scroll up, I scroll down, I scroll up, and I stop, and then I start reading that page, and then from that entire page I take one line of information and I spin something off there. So that's really fun. And then when it comes to middle grade, it's just, there are no rules. It is so whimsical, it is so fun, and it is so refreshing. And sometimes I just need to ride a dragon that's not going to bite my head off and burn the village.
Well, at some point, maybe. Maybe it will bite your head off. Who knows? We have some dragon lovers here, which is great. Mm-hmm. So, there's just so much to talk about with fantasy, and I don't want to, start with a topic that's already been talked about so much, but it's kind of hard not to go over ground that's already been chatted about in the past. I like that backdrop for Keri. Yes, Jennifer, me too.
Thank you.
Great. So Keri, can you move over just a bit and then wear it like the crown, like before when you came
there you go. So some of you build your worlds in trying to avoid it. No, go for it. Wear your crown. Some of you try to build worlds that are part of our actual world, and some of you want to build worlds that are like totally different. So let's talk a little bit about world building, and how do you decide how you're going to build your world? Is it sort of like you come up with the story and the world just sort of follows? Is it like a process that you pants along the way, or do you kind of build it up well in advance? How do each of you do that?
And I've done both. I had like my Saga of the Outer Islands. I built the world from scratch. My Camelot Immortals series, I've set in modern day England, and that one was way harder to do than building the world from scratch, because I had to do all the research about modern day England, which I know less about than historical England, because I write a lot of historical stuff too. So yeah, and so getting all the stuff that's different in England from Canada was a lot harder, and finding how long it would take you to drive from London to Devon or Cornwall or wherever they were going, and stuff like that. So that was way difficult. But building the world from scratch is just, I get out my little maps and draw my maps and get my little governments created, and find out how many kingdoms are in the world, where the islands are, and just go to town on it. So
that sounds fun.
Sounds like you almost explore it like it's already there.
Yeah, well, I usually start with the map when I'm building fantasy from scratch, because I love drawing maps. So
I'm gonna hire you. I need a cartographer eventually. I think most of us do. That could be your side hustle.
Incarnate, JD. Incarnate is your friend.
You got to send me the link.
I definitely will, and it's free to use. It's actually a D&D map generator, but you can take the hexes or whatever out and just have it as a map generator. And now they've allowed you to make it whatever size your book page is. So it works very well. You can draw your own map and you can incorporate it in your own book. It works great.
Whatever show you need me to pimp out, feel free to you have just, that's a late birthday present. Thank you, my friend.
$25 a year US, and you can draw as many maps as you want.
People waste more on crappy coffee.
No, it's been a godsend for me for sure, because you got to have maps in fantasy.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much urban fantasy, because people know where Paris, France is, but in any other kind of fantasy, you need to have a map. Just otherwise, you're going to have, pages and pages of description just to let the reader know where the heck they're going. So
yeah, I use it on the free version, and I used it to map out my battle scene for my book 4 in my new series. So
yeah, you can use that free as long as you want, but as soon as you go commercial, you just pay the $25 license fee, and you're good for a year.
Yeah, well, I was just doing that map for me.
Yeah.
Back to the question.
I have the Heroescape. Oh,
you've got a delay, but no, ladies first. Come on. Chivalry is not dead. I don't care. I don't care.
I've put a whole map together with those little hexagon things, Heroescape, HeroClix, and a whole bunch of little miniatures, and that's a lot of fun too for world building. I didn't mean to go out of turn though, so I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
No worries. It's kind of a free for all, so don't worry about it. So when you say Heroescape, is that something that you do like on your desk, or is it actually on a computer?
Yeah, they're actual pieces, and they lock together, and they've got different designs.
So you've got a physical thing on your desk or in your room or something, and the kids and the husband have to stay out because this is your fantasy world. That's kind of neat. So you're actually moving the pieces around.
It actually belongs to my husband, so he's allowed.
Used to belong to your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're using it for work, okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like after 2 days, someone comes in the room. She's got like wild hair. I'm working.
I would love to go in that room and just move some of the castles around and everything else, and watch you walk in the next day.
Oh my god!
No. With my world building, it's like the world already exists, and I just sort of go there and I look around, and in my mind's eye, I see these things. I'm sure I'm making them up, but it doesn't feel like I'm making them up. It feels like I'm exploring, and that's where most of my world building comes from.
Cool. How about you, Kathrin?
Yeah. What? Let JD go first.
He's trying to be the chivalrous knight, so I don't want to rain on his parade. So
I don't. Well, okay. Now I'm in a tight spot. I don't plan anything out beforehand in terms of world building, other than how it pertains to the overall plot of a book, or within an overarching series plot. And I prefer to go through it organically, whatever comes up in the moment, whatever I can toss into a landscape or a certain region. I really enjoy just bringing out the most unexpected, chaotic thing possible that fits the storyline and fits the characters and fits, what they need to come up against. I definitely agree that the research aspect of writing urban fantasy or anything set in the modern world or the real world is my least favorite part of all things fiction. Research is not my happy place. I've gotten a lot better at it, though. I've had to do a lot of research for a lot of books, particularly urban fantasy. So it's gotten easier, and I have my my go-to resources for quick find out how long this trip would take or find the closest city to whatever. I've learned a lot about the world that way, which has been really fun. And like I had said before, I really enjoy the aspect of combining new different world building within something already pre-established. So there's that mystery aspect of something that maybe half the characters or maybe only just one don't know already. So readers are discovering that with them. I'm discovering it with this main character. And I prefer also to explore that world building through the interactions and relationships between my characters. So it will come across in dialogue. It will come across in some weird new thing that a random magical person just happens to have on them. And it, creates this mystery and questioning that may or may not get explained immediately. But I prefer the organic approach, because that to me is where all the fun is. If I map everything out ahead of time, I get bored. And so I've realized that to keep up my inspiration the way it's been going, I just kind of have to run with it in the moment. So far, it's turned out to work pretty well for me.
Yeah, for sure. You were mentioning travel times and stuff like that, and there are some very good resources online if you look them up for how long it takes a horse to get so many leagues or miles, kilometers, whatever your distance is. So, and boats and stuff like that. That you can find them out there, which helps. Dragon flight, maybe not so much. That's that depends on whether they're carrying the wind speed and everything else. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there to help us develop our world. So, even though they're fantasy worlds, they need to have some kind of realism in them. Just, a horse can't run 100 leagues in a couple hours. So,
I mean, unless it's enchanted.
yeah. Well, he could have magical bracers on for something for sure. Yeah. Anyway, JD's been waiting very patiently. JD, we appreciate that. So we wanted to give you time to drink whatever you're drinking there.
I'm drinking water and tea. I needed to hydrate apparently because I was parched. Speaking of that, my lead-off answer to pretty much every question is it depends on the project. When it comes to the human cycle, only human in shadow of a human. Even within the same project, it's a different approach. For Only Human, I wanted to explore a lot of the world and just expand my horizons and whatnot. And I used a lot of resources. The funny thing is that the resources that I had from 2007 to 2013 when I finished the book are very different from what I have available now. And also, a lot of the places that I researched have changed and others haven't. And that's when I compare notes in terms of the places that I visited, whether it's Greek or Alexandria or Eritrea or Djibouti, which I'm always going to say the name that way because it's just a fun and funny looking name of a country. And I'm sure that it has some redeeming qualities and it is awesome in its own ways. But come on, Djibouti. So basically the research there is trying to find something that's interesting in each place and make it interesting. The first book, I wanted to do like a linear route. It's like I started in a nondescript place in the US because it always happens either in London or in Paris or in New York or in Chicago. I was like a nondescript place in the United States. We cross the Atlantic and then we go like through this European and then Asian and then it ends in Myanmar. The final scene in that book is in Myanmar. It's like the second book has a little bit of trajectory, but it's not as linear. And I do explore, I do go more in depth into a bit more Japanese culture. I'm not going to say it's super bona fide. It's the most Japanese thing that you're ever going to see. But I did research and I did look for places different from your typical Tokyo or Nippon or other places that often get mentioned and used in stories. I explored what a Japanese breakfast looks like, and it looks really tasty. So that's for the urban fantasy. And with urban fantasy, I like that. I have another project that I'm already tinkering with. And it came because walking down the street, going to lunch, I see a place that just makes no sense because it's like, it's a half dead end because it's not a full dead end because the sidewalk is like yay high. So you can go over it and go to another street. And then there's a gas station, and behind the gas station, there's like a cafe. And it looks like they squashed like a block and they put it all into one place. And even the road signs look crossed. And that's where I actually got the title, which I'm not going to mention until I write the thing. But I saw it in a certain angle and I was like, hey, there's a book title. So there's that. And then when it comes to middle grade, Draim, which is the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore, it's me. It's super pants, very little planning, maybe some bullet points here, but I really want to explore that stream of thought that kids really enjoy and tap into, because it's so fun. You know, when you're a kid, you know, that jungle gym is a spaceship. You don't have to really justify why it's a spaceship. It just is. And I do explore that a lot. And the idea of the daydreams is that you have this huge map that is being populated one short story at a time. And eventually we shall populate the entire thing. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm just going to keep writing and just go with it and flow. And in terms of Margaret, I think she had a question about portal fantasies. And I think Given to Fly, which is another middle grade that I wrote, is kind of a portal fantasy, because they find a magical house and they go into the house and there are things that have aspects of reality, but then they go back to reality every certain time. So it's that juxtaposition of having real world moments with your family and heartfelt moments, and then you know, having a conversation with a literal bookworm, and you know, and all the information they have devoured throughout the years.
Very cool.
So how about you, Keri? Sorry, Christie. You are a historical fantasy author. How you go about building your world? Obviously, it takes place on Earth here, so that helps you fill in a lot of things. But
yeah, mine's the least
fantasy,
exciting.
you need to fill something in.
Mine's the least exciting because it's historical fantasy in terms of the world itself. I am, at this point at least, in Grimoire Society of Dark Acts. So far, I'm just using Boston as it is, or as it was, rather. So I'm not going to necessarily stick with what's actually on the map. That becomes very limiting, which I actually wanted to ask Kathrin, because she has in her Accessory to Magic, I want to say it takes place in Denver. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but it's in Colorado, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, yeah, it can be really limiting in that way, that, you know, I don't want to put literally everything that's in Boston. I want to have different places, and that's part of the fantastical part. I'm making up the places that are there, not just in a fictional way, but in other ways. And like the fantastical part, I guess, for me, of the world building comes more in like how the surroundings can look when people start doing magic and how they change, things like that. I play a lot with real Victorian stuff and turn it into like magical, exciting Victorian stuff, with the damask on the wallpaper kind of coming to life and becoming enlarged and huge and shadowy and stuff like that. So, you know, that part is the fantasy part for me, and it's a lot of fun. So, you know, but like I said, I'm not sticking to literal. It's funny because I'm not going to stick to literally what's in Boston. It's too difficult. But at the same time, I'm using literal plans for city houses at that time, so I can have an exact city house, you know, that is authentic. So I'm like trying to stick as close to authentic as possible with the stuff that matters. I don't think anybody's going to be looking up 1850s Boston and trying to figure out if I got the turn right or something on the street.
What about the Nanopunk project?
That's a good point. Yeah, I keep not thinking of myself as a fantasy writer and forgetting, actually. So I know. So yeah, actually, that's a great point. That one is totally made up. That one is totally from scratch. That originated where, you know, I love the whole neon feel of a lot of sci-fi dystopian types of things, but I wanted it to be my own way. And I haven't really released too much, just an excerpt on Patreon, that's it. But basically, like, I have the colors doing something unique. So they're kind of mood changing colors, and they're used to manipulate people. So, you know, that's more like fantasy dystopian, you know, kind of thing. And that is, you know, it is totally made up. It's based on a real city. The second book will be very different. But yeah, that's a good point, JD. It is. I totally forget about that. It has no transportation, and there are reasons behind that as well. So, you know, yeah, a few kind of different things without giving too much away. So, what about you, Richard?
I'm a pantser, so I just kick my guy out the door, and the world develops in front of my character's eyes, and I discover the world with them, and I go on the journey with them. I have no idea what's going to happen. They tell me what's going to happen, and I generally know the ending. And sometimes even then, they surprise me, and I did not know the ending. But for the most part, I know the ending. As far as the lands go, the maps. Sometimes I do them ahead of time. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes the maps just evolve from in my head as the character goes through the mountains. All of a sudden, there's a mountain in my map, and then at some point I'll sit down and actually draw the rest of the map so he actually has a place to go. But yeah, I'm just a pantser. So,
But what's the word count for your projects? Because you don't write slim books.
No, I write epic fantasy. So epic by nature is epic. My last book is 150,000. I'm 112,000 words into book
Just
2.
Pants 150K.
And we're just starting chapter 2 now. So
like for you then,
I'm just kidding. I'm not just
I would
starting
fall
chapter
for
2.
that.
115, 2 chapters.
But it's probably going to end up to be 150, 160,000 words by the time I'm done. But
so for you then, I have a question. I was since you're pantsing it, you're pantsing it, and then I guess you're developing the map along the way. Are you kind of like using Incarnate along the way as you go?
With this one, I set out and did the map first. So I did like Anita this time. I actually did the map. I knew it was south of the map that I'd done before for my previous series. So that I just wanted to draw in, like the shoreline had to follow a certain way, and there's mountains, there's a spine of mountains and stuff like that. They all had to follow in. So I figured I better draw this map first, just to make it consistent with the other lands that I had. I've never explored south of Zephyr, so I figured I better draw the map first. But
Oh boy.
I wanted to ask this question over here, and because some of the viewers have seen her, and you've seen her too, Christie, all the time, because she always comes to my live reads. I want to ask everybody here, the main dragon of my award-winning series, Legend of Lurker, was named after this cat. And so I used to call her my Lurker long before I ever wrote dragons in my fantasy, because she likes to get, where's my pointer finger? She likes to get on top of my desk and look down at me. And I always told her that she was lurking at me. And then when it came time to write the first dragon in my book, the dragon was looking down on the main character, and she named the dragon Lurker just because of the cat. But her name is Rika, and Rika is also named after my daughter and my wife. I combined their names, Rebecca and Caroline, and got Rika. So I want to ask you guys, in your books, do your pets, people that you know, people that you don't like, people that you really like, do they actually make it into your stories? And how so? And do you change their names a little bit? And how about you, Keri? Put you on the spot first this time.
Yes. So one of my characters is named after one of my sons. I have another character named after my other son's imaginary friend. So I've got a Mikey and a Raisin. Jack is an acronym, Jim and Keri, which is me and my husband. So
Jim Keri, I love it.
Yeah. And then I've also got a character who his name is Inko, but his entire personality is based on my husband. And the area where they live is called Gabriel, which is after my son Gabriel. So there's the Valley of Clayton, and my son's middle name is Clayton, and there's the Connor, Connor Canal, and my other son's middle name is Connor. So yeah, they're all over in there. The characters, land masses, people I kill. Not my family.
No, that's awesome, because and these are the little things that most readers never know about the author and about their stories. And when you get a really avid reader, and all of a sudden they pick up these little tidbits, they go, "Oh, that's so cool!" They get to learn a little bit about the author. How about you,
My
Kathrin?
very first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't know you weren't done.
My very first bigger reader, her last name is Wingren, and I just thought it sounded so like something from a fantasy, and I got permission from her family, and put her in there too.
Nice. You're just lagging a bit on us, Keri, so
Sorry.
sure no, it's not your fault. I'm sure you have nothing to do with it. Anyway, Kathrin, so what about you? Do you have any people that you want to slay in there that have pissed you off, or people that you really like to exonerate because you really love them?
Neither. I did the one sort of inclusion of someone in my life that I was so excited about. Was when I was writing the Unclaimed trilogy, and it's dark, epic fantasy, a little more on the new adult side, maybe, at least compared to all my other stuff. It was the second series that I put out, and I had finished writing book 1 that was already released. And my older brother had read it, and he got so excited about it. And he said, "Oh my gosh, I wish there was a way that I could join Karen's journey. Like, can I do that?" And this is Karen, a man's name. It's the Gaelic spelling. And so I said, "Oh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see about it, you know." And we had this whole conversation that was actually over text. And then I wrote our conversation in, I'd like Renaissance period stylized the dialogue, but I wrote the exact same conversation from our text into a brand new character that the main character encounters on his journey. I wrote in my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, and referred to my nieces and nephew as their yaks, because these characters ran a yak farm. And so it was like a really very well hidden Easter egg that literally no one would ever get except for my brother. And he hasn't read the 3rd book yet. It's been years. It's as close as I have ever gotten to doing anything that was a very specific sort of personalized dedication. All the dedications in my books are to large groups of people, or, you know, probably mainly just everyone. And they include whatever kind of message I feel like I want to put out there before the beginning of the book. So this is the most detailed sort of dedication that I had ever done with characters. I think it's hilarious. But he has no idea what it is. So, you know, it was fun while it lasted. I do have many, many characters from my in my LGBTQ plus dystopian sci-fi Blue Helix series. There are 2 books out now. The 3rd one's in progress. Probably a good 1/3 of the characters, at least, were based off of people in my life and my own experiences. Sometimes, like Leo's father's drug dealer in Sleepwater Beach, I changed none of the details whatsoever. Some people aren't going to be reading it. But I definitely really enjoy basing my characters off of people that I know. I do know how they interact, and I also love taking one specific thing, whether it's a name or a certain hoodie they wear or their favorite food that's very strange, and crafting that into other characters as well. But I normally change my names up pretty well, so I don't name too much after things or people that I already know. And my pets' names are Sadie and Bruce Willis. I'm not sure how I can write those into anything.
You have to write a Die Hard movie then, I guess. That's neat, though. I like how you incorporate their something they wear or something they eat. That's really neat. So, how about you, JD?
Thanks.
I can just say yes. The list is very ridiculously long. Each project has a lot of people. From the Human Cycle, Mrs. Fawn is based on Mom. Captain Jane is my wife. Those are 2 people from that are direct contact for me. I also base characters of Shannon Hoon off Lane Staley. I based a character influenced by Rosie from A Whole Lot of Rosie from the AC/DC song. If you go to Given to Fly, there are characters based on Noam Chomsky, the chefs of 2 of my favorite restaurants back home, my favorite comic book character when I was growing up, and the list goes on and on and on. And the daydreams are I invite people to the daydreams, since, you know, technology is what it is, and we get to meet people that are halfway around the world. You meet people from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, from everywhere. Sometimes these people are having a tough time. So basically, the daydream started being. It started from a random conversation with a friend, whose name is Claudette, and she's also one of the main characters along with me. You're gonna if you read the daydreams, you're gonna read JD because it's me. So it's me and Claudette, and we have Captain Fish, which is a 6-foot tall fish who's the captain of the boat, and there's a Julian.
Oh, wait, can I interrupt you just for 1 second there?
Yeah.
Why is the fish the captain of a boat? Can he swim?
The thing is that he's the captain.
Or he's lazy. He's a lazy fish. He wants to.
And
I'm just bugging you. It just seemed odd that.
No, and he's bossy, so he wanted his own ship and not just to swim.
Okay. That's
So
awesome.
when I was writing the first Daydreams, I wrote, let's say this is number 3 and number 4, and then a friend of mine actually got sick, and she needed surgery for something. HIPAA. Let's respect that. I'm saying already too much. So basically, instead of writing a get well card or anything, I wrote a short story where she went on an adventure and her healing process. Fortunately, it turned out well. But from that point forward, basically every daydream includes me and people that I know, that from friends who lost someone that they love, to a friend who went through chemotherapy, through all sorts of things. And metaphorically, we explore the challenges that they faced, and this being my bit of good juju and good vibes, so I can throw them their way. Without them, instead of just thoughts and prayers, it's like thoughts and whimsical stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome when you can do that. I actually did that about a month ago. I had someone visit my booth and they wanted to buy one of my books, and I always have a dragon naming contest there for my readers to name dragons in my books. And he related a story to me. He had a Down syndrome sister who passed away when she was 22, 23 or whatever, and he just spoke. He thought the world of her, and so he named a dragon Seraphinius. And his story so touched me that I wrote her into my. As I'm sitting at the market, a lot of times not everyone's a fantasy lover, so they don't come to my booth. But I'm sitting in the market and I write while I'm at the market, and I wrote Seraphinius right into the story right then. And I emailed them afterwards. I said, thank you for your submission. Do I have your permission to use your name in front of the book to say thank you? So that was my little juju, or however you said that. Yeah, it's so neat to interact with the fans like that and do that. How about you, Anita?
I'm the odd man out because I don't generally write people into my stories. I've written a few TV nods in my things. Like I named the character Winchester, who made a deal with the devil after Supernatural, my favorite show. And I did write my Drabble series, though, is based on a character, on a real person that was in a writing group I used to belong to. And the Flying Monkeys Genetic Laboratory saga. Tracy is actually based on a real person. Anyway, although she is not in real life a dinosaur armadillo clone. I'm just putting that out there.
That sounds interesting. Anita, I'm with you, actually. I thought I was going to be the only one who doesn't really base characters on people they know, but I don't. I do put in little Easter eggs, but, kind of like you, little TV show things, quotes, little things that almost no one is going to pick up on. And also it's usually taken so far out of context that nobody's going to get it, mostly but me. But, in the Dark Triana collection, which is not fantasy, it's historical suspense, those are all like... those names are chosen very carefully. They usually mean something, but they're not people I know. And then, in my nanopunk, I have all 1-syllable names, and there's going to be a reason for that in book 2. So that was interesting because I was searching and searching for something that fit. It always has to just kind of feel right. I don't know if you guys have that, like where, it just has to kind of like hit you right. So I scroll through the names and I scroll and I scroll and, at some point I named this one character Ash, and I was like, I can't do that Pokemon like forever. It's just gonna, right. But it's stuck, and it just was right for some reason. I was like, darn it. I didn't want that to stick, but it did. So that's in there.
Every Evil Dead fan is going, no, not Pokemon.
Oh, true. Yeah.
That's so interesting you say that, how people relate things to. I have a character in my book called Ash. I had the brothers, Cinder and Ash. They live beside a volcano. So it's kind of corny, but I never once thought of Ash as being anything else other than, although I'm reading Brandon Sanderson, and he's got a character named Ash in the book Elantris. I go, great.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
right.
that's what I related to. And I go, nice. But,
It's just because it was such a big part of my childhood.
right,
That,
right.
You know, it's just one of those things that gets stuck in your head.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
For sure. So, and with the historical fantasy, it's totally different. It's again, like kind of whatever strikes me, but the main character's name is Humphrey Bollington, and I was aiming for something very like kind of boring and kind of just nothingy, because that's what his life is before he discovers these magical people, this whole group, the Dark Society of oh my god, I always get the name of my own thing wrong. It's so embarrassing. Grimoire Society of Dark Hags. I'll get my act together at some point. But anyway, yeah, I was aiming for something very dull, and I was like, Humphrey. Which every Humphrey out there is going to be like, I'm very angry with you right now. But, I also like Humphrey Bogart. So, he's a cool guy. Anyway, that's kind of how I came up with that name. And the rest of them, I tried to keep to realistic Victorian names. So it's not super exciting stuff, but they fit like the personality. So that's, even in fantasy, that's how I come up with mine.
Yeah, but sometimes some books have some names that you go like, did it have to be that complicated?
I know.
And because if you have a book that it holds up to the names, fine. But I read it's a POS book that I got recommended left and right on Borders.
POS,
yes.
Sorry, what's a POS book?
Piece of.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought, but I figured I better make sure.
It is a POS. I got recommended that book like from left and right and center, and I finally read it, and I wanted to line up every single person and website that recommended it and just do like a Stooges slap, because it sucked. It really sucked, and the names were just needlessly elaborate. When it holds up or it adds to it. When it's BS.
Yeah, no, I agree. If it's done just because, then it makes it difficult. So Keri keeps trying to join us here, and she's having trouble with the storm in Chicago. So there she is. If you see her jump in and out, that's what's going on. Welcome back, Keri.
Sorry about that.
No worries. You can't do anything about a storm. So I asked you guys when I sent you an email, is there a question that you guys would like to pose to the rest of us? And you're welcome to ask it if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to either. I don't know if you had we'll start with Kathrin this time.
Yes, thank you. I am actually curious to hear how many of us are on, let's see, how do I say this? Not on board, but more inclined to write big bad villains, external foes, and antagonists within a magical world. Because I don't, and I do wonder how intrinsically tied that is to other authors' interpretations of genres, where they sit within those genres, and how they like to write. Because I do see a lot of it, and I love it when it's in good books and it's in good storylines. And I've never written one big bad villain that is the end all be all. So I'm curious. There you go.
I can just agree with you, Kathrin.
I've written the big bad villains. I've written a book where the protagonists were villains. Villains are my thing. So yeah, I'm all for the villain.
So just conscious of time, we'll get to just kind of maybe a rapid fire answers here, and we can get everyone to go around the board. So how about you, Keri? I think Keri might have frozen on us again. Okay, well, Kathrin, you just said you don't. So how about you, JD?
I do have a central villain. I wouldn't say he's a big bad villain because he's like a scrawny dude. And that I think those are the scariest ones. The ones that look the most harmless, those are the ones that scare the crap out of me.
Right. Christie?
Yeah, I don't have usually a central villain for the most part. I really don't. It's multiple people. Like Anita said, we have multiple villains, so yeah, I don't have like a big boss like in the, video games and stuff.
Right. When I wrote my original series, I I have this all-encompassing sorcerer, this all-powerful sorcerer, and I wanted to give him some depth, so he wasn't like, I don't think anyone's born inherently evil. I think it's the things that happen around us that might get us there, or society or whatever. So I'm writing the backstory for him probably next year, the year after, and it's going to be him where he's just raised as a normal person. He's a bit spoiled because of his station in life, and when things don't go his way, he finds ways to make them go his way, and he just slowly, people start disliking him, so he dislikes them back, and one thing leads to another, and he becomes this person who is intent on taking over the world at one point. So I wanted to give him some like a human quality, so not just this Dr. Evil who's always mean. He's been mean from the time he was born. So how about you, JD? Do you have a question you'd like to ask everybody?
I always have tons of questions because my first handle was the Riddler before I had Joker online. But in terms of rapid fire, have either any of you included some of your favorite foods or drinks or candies or stuff that you've hated in your life, in your stories? For me, I have included a ton of stuff, but among them, my favorite type of beer is IPA, and that's the type of beer that one specific character drinks in the Human Cycle.
Cool.
Well, apparently all my characters drink, so they're all alcoholics, apparently. I've been noticing the trend, especially if they're immortal, they're alcoholics, straight up.
How about you, Keri?
There's a lot of alcohol in my books, and a lot of other consumables that alter their state of mind, none of which I've ever tried, but I like to imagine I experience these things vicariously through my characters.
That's awesome.
We don't want you on substances making a map. That's gonna get weird.
It'd be like Alice in Wonderland at that point, I think.
Shrooms was fun.
There you go, Alice in Wonderland again. Eh? How about you, Kathrin?
Yeah, there's surprisingly less drinking in my books than I would have expected of myself. But I know when I started writing Sleepwater Beat, which again, this is dystopian sci-fi and a lot more real world oriented. I used to be a very incredibly prolific cigarette smoker. Can I use that word to describe myself? And I, at one point in time, I was smoking a lot. And that carried through into this book to the point where I had several readers reach out to me and say, I love the book. This is fantastic. And oh my gosh, what's going to happen to this girl who smokes so many cigarettes all the time? Well, I guess that's that. And so that would fall into the category of something I really do not like anymore that I have written into my characters. And, there have been some things with fixation on certain types of food or being repulsed by certain types of food that I wanted to play with in terms of like, oh, this is what someone who is not a normal person would have as a reaction to these things that everyone else thinks is amazing. And that's what I really like to play with, is the complete opposite.
Christie, you got some fancy Victorian foods in there?
I don't have any yet in the grimoire stories. I don't have any food at all, I don't think, yet. In the Dark Victoriana collection, I have a lot of food because, not like an overwhelming amount, but I have meals that are, I have so much fun putting them together. I have way too much fun putting them together. I have these recipe books from that time period, from around the 1850s. And boy, do I have a good time going through them and coming up with all kinds of delectable meals. And there's a mention of course, my favorite food group, chocolate, in The Artist, which is part of the Dark Victoriana collection. And in my Nanopunk, I pretty much make it my nightmare for food, which is just having food that is really only meant for nutrition, doesn't taste a whole lot like anything. It's really boring, and it's just kind of like you're eating bars and tea, and just not tea in a bad way, but tea that's like this is what you're supposed to have, so you have to have it, And then in this night. It's not a nightclub because that's not allowed, but something similar. There's a secret area there where you can get prohibition, which I use for the word alcohol. They don't know the word alcohol, so they call it prohibition. But yeah, otherwise, Grimoire has escaped the food completely. It skipped over the food. It does have some actual real pharmacy stuff in it from the time. So I did a lot of research to find those, and that was fun.
Opium.
It's like, what'd you say?
Opium with everything.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. There's that, which was considered fine at the time. So, no big deal.
I bet there's a lot of laudanum.
Well, there should be a lot of laudanum. It's coming.
I think of Tombstone, where she's walking around with a little bottle of it all the time.
Yes. I do love that. How about you, Richard?
I think the only thing that really sticks out in my mind is in my original series, the Soulforge Saga, the wizards come up with this thing called wizard's bread. And again, it's just like you say, it's just a food to sustain them, and it tastes horrible. And the wizards eat it because they made it. But anyone that travels with them, they gripe about it and they complain about it and everything else. Even though there's no food to be had, they have to eat this or they're going to die. But there's always that little barb in there, like, they're going to break my teeth with this stuff. And other than that, I don't do a lot with food in there. Obviously, it happens 3 times a day, at least in our day and age. But people do have to eat to survive, so it's got to be mentioned once in a while. And it is pervasive in there. Sometimes my dragons got to go forage for themselves while the people sit around a campfire. But yeah. So who hasn't asked a question yet? I'm not sure who.
Well, I had a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering if any of you have a least favorite fantasy creature that you would never use or rarely use in your writing.
Interesting.
If there's one that sucked, I would try to flip it on its head. And so I don't think so. For me, if there's something that I really think sucks, I think that's a cool challenge, and I'm gonna go like, let's make this not suck. I always sell my stories like these stories include vampires that don't sparkle for a specific reason.
Vampires don't sparkle.
I had a character that, after some constructive critique, I realized that he was weak for a villain, and I did get tired of writing him, so I killed him and replaced him, and now there's a new villain.
Nice.
That works.
How about you, Kathrin?
I was going to say like fairies, like the little floating around fairies, but I totally have put those into something at one point in time, so I can't actually say that. I am very much like JD in that I would just always try to flip whatever it is on its head completely upside down, find the thing that makes it not itself while still being itself. And that is my favorite thing to do with everything. So probably the characters, creatures, what have you, I can't stand are the ones that are exactly like what everyone else has seen and heard before, and that bore me to death.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It gives the character some depth and their own character. It gives the character.
Yeah. For me, it would probably be zombies, though. They just don't interest me.
That's a good point.
I would try to do something fun, but I feel you. What could you do?
I think zombies are either for it. You either like them or you don't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've done a couple of poems with them, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't usually do stories or anything like that with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that movie. It was like called something like Warm Bodies. Was that around 2013, 2014, where it was like the human girl and the zombie boy could like talk and fall in love with each other. That I thought was awesome because it was completely different. Not what you would expect. Yeah.
And in Santa Clarita, diet is fun, but would I feel compelled to write it? It's a good point. It's not something. Yeah, you could do a twist on it, but it's not something that drives me. So
right.
Good question.
Yeah, that's great.
How about you, Christie?
Yeah, I don't mind reading about different kinds of things like that, but I don't actually have any temptation to write them. So I haven't done that yet, and I really doubt that I will. like I said, I don't mind reading it. I don't think I'm gonna write it. I mean, I am in Grimoire trying to take all kinds of like typical magic stuff, like potions and crystal balls and stuff like that, and flip that on its head. Just like, Kathrin and JD were talking about. So like, as opposed to having a crystal ball where, first of all, it's usually women who use them. So I have a man using him and instead of going like this, he has to put his hand into it. So like, I'm just kind of trying to change everything, and it's so much fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's just a lot of fun. But yeah, in terms of creatures, I don't really use them too much. How about you, Richard?
That is actually a very neat question, because when I first started the Soul Forge saga many, many years ago, I wanted all the characters to be relatable to like real life. And so much so that when I started getting to the point where I might be publishing my books through Amazon, because I realized that you can actually do that, all I heard was write to market. I write fantasy, and they were saying, write to market, write about dragons. And I was, no way, well, I'm writing about dragons. That I will never write about dragons. And then halfway through book 3, Into the Madness, one of my characters does something so bizarre that a dragon came into the story, and that's all I write about now is dragons. So, and
the irony.
And because of that, all of a sudden, elves are in my stories, and dwarves are in my stories, and all these things that were never in my stories because I thought they were just so, everyone did that. And, there's a reason that everyone does that, because that's what the readers like to read. So I've kind of adopted write to the market, but only because I enjoy writing it to the market now. Like I didn't do it because I was told this is what I need to do if I want to sell a book. I've just all of a sudden discovered a love for it, and it's neat, all the different characteristics that you can give a dwarf that is so different from an elf, that's so different from a person. Or I have this big lovable half giant in my stories, and he's a big dummy, but he's got the soul and the heart of a lion, and just the simple way he looks at life, he actually sees things a lot better and a lot clearer than the so-called intelligent people. And so at the end of the day, his views are actually smarter or more intellectual than the more learned people. So it's neat, all the different nuances you can put in these characters as you build them. So I don't think there's a character I wouldn't write. I even have a necromancer, and so I guess I write about zombies as well. Yeah.
In a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the creatures that he resurrects are zombies, I guess. So, yeah. So, who hasn't asked a question before we wrap this up?
Keri.
Did you have a question you'd like to pose to the panel?
Yeah. What is your rabbit hole? We all have one. What is your rabbit hole?
And sorry, just maybe it's just for me, but what does a rabbit hole mean? What do you mean by that?
Just a small aspect of your writing that you deter to work on, and you end up falling down the rabbit hole, and before you know it, you've spent an entire day. For me, it's research. I will get into exactly what kind of dog the Roanoke people had, how they shot their special their guns, and what they were called exactly, and what they would have called certain things, as opposed to what we call them today, and just being so nitpicky and particular about things that don't even end up making it into the story, but I spend way too much time gathering.
You would make a good historical fiction author.
It does
I think
have a
we're
lot
all
of
guilty
history
of
in it.
spending time on stuff that,
Yeah.
it's actually time well spent, I think, by the end of the day. How about you, Kathrin? What's your rabbit hole?
Oh gosh. Well, I am also a career ghost writer as well, of fiction, and I have gotten to a point where I feel like for the most part I may have perfected the avoidance of research items because I mark it and I come back to it later. So I get the first draft out first, and I do that with my own books as well. But I have realized that the particular scenes that I'm writing, they don't require any research, but any scene that has any kind of physical intimacy in it whatsoever takes me about 5 times longer than everything else. I can blow through an action scene. I can kill a bunch of people. There's blood and guts everywhere and cussing and like all of it. But put 2 characters together and have them like really have to be together. There's that fine line between like ridiculousness and erotica that is not where I'm trying to go. And then there's like that perfect point between, and it takes me forever. I remember actually in the Accessory to Magic series, writing a scene like this, and it took me 3 hours to write about 700 words, maybe 1,000. I normally write 2,000 words an hour, so it was like a real big deal for me. And yeah, that's my biggest slowdown hamper, I suppose.
So it's something you can't bang out. Okay.
Well, I was going to say what she should do is
bang
write
everything
about
else
the Klingon romantic scene. Then you can have your blood and guts at the same time. But anyway, JD, what about
you?
I
Research.
think it's just a light bulb.
No,
That's the key.
research. I'm always doing like a huge dump file, but I don't fall into that rabbit hole per se. It's like I don't. Eventually, I'll go to the research and stuff like that. But it's more like I'm walking around and I take a piece of something and I chuck it in a bag, and then eventually I see it. Two things. One is outlining, because I go out with ye old blank paper, and I have a bunch of ye old blank papers or notebooks, and I start outlining different things, and suddenly I go like, wow, I haven't written and finished something in a while. And the other thing is playlists for music. If you know, on Spotify, I have the March of the Writers playlist. I have a writing playlist. I have a dark fantasy playlist. I have a Given to Fly playlist, Daydream, and I keep going. And it's like meticulously, and suddenly I go like, I should get to write. Writing would be good.
That's awesome. How about you, Anita?
Oh, it's the historical and mythological research for me. I must know the details. And I will go down the YouTube rabbit holes and follow them all the way through the hours until I find what I need.
So it seems like a common theme, researchers. And imagine, I know I've spoken to Christie many times about this. I'm thinking that's Christie's rabbit hole too. Is that correct?
Oh yes, the research. Always with the research.
No, I was just gonna say I get this impression that you really like it, Christie.
I do.
The research.
I
Yeah,
do.
see that's okay.
No, I get that impression too, but I imagine you spend a lot of time doing it. Just
I'm not going to pretend I don't. I do. I really enjoy it.
Yes, I love the research too. I mean, it's fun.
It is fun. It is, and you end up learning all this stuff along the way.
Mm-hmm. And then you find out little details you can put into book 3.
Exactly. Yes,
exactly.
that is so true.
And you haven't finished book 1.
Yeah,
that is also true. It's so true. I read through like Victorian newspapers a lot, and oh boy, the things you find out. The things that don't make it into history today that we learn are sometimes shocking, and you're like, how could this not? How are we not learning this? I'm really surprised, or how have I not heard of this person, or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's really easy to get stuck in that rabbit hole. And I think the deepest one I got into for Grimoire so far was, like I said, trying to find what a city home would actually look like, because I can't just make it up. It has to be right. At least for me, it has to be right. So, I went through a lot to find an actual design and what each room was used for. So I can actually look at it and be like, okay, this was the basement, the first floor, second floor, third floor. And this is how every one of those rooms were used. And it actually makes it easier for me than trying to make it up sometimes. I know that like making it up is typically like your brain is flowing and wherever the character goes, they go, and you can just probably sketch that out, which is kind of what I did for historical fiction, and regular historical fiction. But I mean, it was realistic, of course. I did the research, obviously, but with the historical fantasy, I wanted a literal house. And all the, things you can buy at the pharmacy are real and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I go down that rabbit hole. I will be down there forever. I'm never coming out. There's just no chance of finding me.
Yeah. So I guess my rabbit hole, and recently it was, I was doing a live read, and I showed, I have pictures in my books, and I showed a picture of a character I was going to introduce, never been in my books yet. And she was an assassin. And I asked the people that were listening that night, can they name the character for me? Because I couldn't think of a name for her. And someone mentioned the word nightshade. And I said, oh yeah, why nightshade? And she said, because it's a poison. I said, oh, well, dummy, of course it is. So I'm thinking that's an awesome name for an assassin, but after I'd done my live read, and the next morning I got up and I'm thinking, well, I'm sure someone's probably used nightshade. So I started researching that, and sure enough, there's nightshade all over the place. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that. So I started looking through all these different plants that could be poisonous. There's stinging nettles and all these different things. And everyone had every name that I thought was cool. Everyone had used it somewhere, whether it was in World of Warcraft or the Forgotten Realms or somewhere. Somebody used that name, and of course they have, because it's a neat play on the name. And the only name that hadn't used was the name Gimpy Gimpy. And it was an Australian poisonous thing. And I think, I can't call a character Gimpy Gimpy. But I was almost reduced to that. And then I saw the cassava root. And the cassava root is something, if you use the outside of it, I think it was cyanide they made out of it. And, it's an edible root, but you got to watch how you do it. And I'm thinking cassava. So I looked up cassava. I didn't see anyone with the name cassava. So this person actually became cassava, but it took me many, many hours and looking through Gimpy Gippies before I got to that realization. So she did get a name, and it was because that one thing that lady mentioned to me about nightshade. So I was very thankful for that. But yeah, these rabbit holes, certainly all of a sudden you look up at the clock and you go, oh my God, where'd my day go? And just like JD said, I got to get some writing done, but the day's pretty well shot. So.
But
anyway,
I want to use Gippy Gippy.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to use Gimpy Gimpy. I just want credit in your book for being the guy that gave it to you.
Because you discovered the plant, right?
I didn't discover the plant, but I discovered the name to use in this story. Yeah, it's look up. It's just some Australian. It's very, very poisonous, but it's got a silly name. So.
Well, it'll kill you in 3 seconds. We're gonna call it Gimpy Gimpy.
Actually, yeah, you gotta have the accent. If you have the accent, it makes it sound cool.
Crikey!
So anyway, Christie, I'm not sure if you want to say anything before we sign off here, but I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and Keri as well, who's unfortunately having issues with the weather.
No, I have nothing else to say. Thank you guys all for being here so much. It was amazing hearing what you all had to say, and really inspiring. Like, I want to go right now. I want to do this right now.
That's awesome.
It's so much fun, honestly.
And that's really cool. It's in the chat panel. What's that?
Keri's in the chat.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, no worries, Keri. Thanks for joining us. So I just want to introduce next week's guest before we leave. So again, thank you guys for joining. And if we have another fantasy author panel, we'll hook you guys up again sometime in next year. I imagine we'll come around to it again. So next week's guest, who will join us live from across the Atlantic Ocean, he's sticking close to today's theme. Paul Cood, and we're going to have to ask him how he actually says his name, is the young adult fantasy author of the White Dragon saga. If there was ever an award given to the one person who I've seen on social media who supported their fellow authors more by sharing the most posts, it would without a doubt go to Paul Cood. He shares absolutely everything. And I try to share something of his. He never comes up my feed, so I try looking for his stuff. But the guy is just amazing. He just shares everything he put out. He'll share it. So until we meet again, on behalf of Christie and myself, thank you for watching Lurking for Legends. Apologize for going a little bit over 45 minutes, but we'll see you next week. Take care.